The quantum gates of Valthian Prime shimmered with an otherworldly purple hue as Asher stepped through. His worn leather jacket, a stark contrast to the crystalline architecture surrounding him. He was human, one of the few who had ventured this deep into consortium space, where 100 alien species conducted their endless diplomatic dances. He touched his pocket instinctively. The photograph was still there, creased and fading. It always was. Princess Elizabeth of the Valthian dynasty stood on the observation deck, her translucent wings catching the light of 3 suns. To the galaxy, she was royalty incarnata, being of pure energy and grace, daughter of the species that had first united the stars under a single banner. To Asher, she was the reason he'd crossed half the galaxy on a ship held together by duct tape and human stubbornness. "The human delegation arrives," announced Chancellor Ver, his many eyes swiveling toward Asher with barely concealed disdain. How quaint. Asher had learned long ago that humans weren't supposed to be here. Earth was a backwater world, barely FTL capable, its people considered primitive by consortium standards. But humans had one quality that baffled the elder races: they simply refused to acknowledge their own limitations. Chancellor Asher nodded, his voice steady despite the weight of 1,000 alien gazers upon him. Elizabeth turned, and for a moment the diplomatic mask slipped. Her luminescent eyes met his, and something passed between them. A shared memory of a crashed ship on a forbidden moon, of 3 days waiting for rescue that never came, of a human teaching a princess how to laugh. That was 2 years ago, before the consortium discovered their friendship, before her father forbade any contact, before Asher became persona non grata in half the galaxy. The summit proceeded with tedious formality. Representatives from species that had mastered faster-than-light travel when Earth's ancestors were still climbing trees debated trade routes and territory disputes. Asher sat in the human delegation's corner, a corner that consisted solely of him and a single chair, and waited. He wasn't here for the politics. When the session broke for the evening cycle, Asher found himself wandering the palace's bioluminescent gardens. The plants here existed in dimensions humans could barely perceive, their roots reaching into subspace itself. "You came." He turned. Elizabeth stood beneath a cascade of starlight flowers, her formal regalia replaced by simpler robes. She looked more like the person who had shared his emergency rations, and less like the future empress of a galactic dynasty. "I had to," Asher said simply. She moved closer, and he could see the concerned Chris in her brow, so human, despite her ethereal nature. "They're planning to expel Earth from the consortium. My father believes humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable." "He's probably right," Asher admitted, with a wry smile. "We do have a habit of doing impossible things, like crossing hostile space in a ship that shouldn't fly, just to attend a summit you weren't invited to. Something like that." Elizabeth's laughter sounded like crystal bells that made the nearby flowers pulse with sympathetic light. Then her expression grew serious. She leaned closer, and Asher felt the characteristic warmth of her energy field. She whispered in his ear, her voice barely audible, "I know you carry my photo in your pocket." Asher froze. His hand moved unconsciously to his jacket, feeling the outline of the photograph through the fabric. It was from that moon, taken with his ancient camera. Elizabeth, disheveled and exhausted but smiling, holding up a piece of wreckage like a trophy. The only time he'd ever seen her truly free. "How did you?" "I'm the princess of the most advanced civilization in the galaxy," she said, pulling back with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Did you think I wouldn't have ways of knowing? I guess that was naive of me." "Very human of you," she corrected gently. "You know what else I know? That photo is the reason you're really here. Not for politics, not for Earth's seat in the consortium. You came because you couldn't stand the thought of me being alone in these negotiations." Asher wanted to deny it, but humans were terrible liars, especially to themselves. Would that be so wrong? "No," Elizabeth said, and for the first time since he'd arrived, she let her royal composure slip entirely. "It would be very, very right. Do you know what makes humans special, Asher? It's not your technology or your weapons, or even your stubbornness. It's that you care impossibly deeply about impossibly small things. You crossed the stars for a photograph, for a memory, for you," Asher corrected quietly. The garden seemed to hold its breath. In the distance, the triple suns began their descent, painting the sky in colors that had no names in human languages. "Tomorrow," Elizabeth said, "my father will call for Earth's expulsion. The vote will be close, and I will do something very unprincess-like." "What's that?" I will speak against him. I will tell the consortium that if they cannot see the value in a species that crosses the stars for friendship, then perhaps the consortium has forgotten what it means to be alive. She reached out, her energy form hand hovering near his, and I will show them this. From her robes, she produced a photograph identical to his, but pristine, carefully preserved in a stasis field. He kept it, Asher breathed. I carry it everywhere, Elizabeth admitted. In a civilization of energy beings who stored data in quantum matrices, I keep a physical photograph. My attendants think I'm eccentric. My father thinks I'm rebellious. She smiled. I think I learned something from a human on a broken moon. What's that? That some things are worth holding on to, even when they're not logical. Especially when they're not logical. The next day, when Princess Elizabeth stood before the consortium and defended humanity with a passion that shocked the assembly, Asher understood what the elder races would never comprehend. Humans weren't special because they were advanced or powerful. They were special because they made everyone around them want to be more than what they were. As the vote concluded narrowly in Earth's favor, Elizabeth caught his eye across the chamber. Her hand moved briefly to her robes, where a photograph rested against her heart. Asher smiled and touched his pocket. Some bridges between worlds weren't built with technology or treaties. They were built with creased photographs and impossible friendships, carried across the stars in worn jacket pockets and royal robes alike. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all.